You can see that this sits at around 23,500 euros for a McLaren 720S. What's up YouTube, and welcome to a new video. Now we need to have a serious talk about McLarens, and more specifically about the depreciation rates of them, as it seems that the whole world is discussing about it. Owners are raising their concerns on YouTube. The YouTuber JM on Cars made a full analysis on it, and there are so many topics on the Pistonheads forums that I can't even begin to count them. Now McLaren just released their annual report, and none of that negative publicity seems to be reflected in it over there. On the contrary, they had their best year ever in terms of productions, as they produced 4,863 vehicles, which is 46% more than they did in 2017. Now, is the depreciation rate for McLaren indeed so high, and do the owners have a good point in complaining about it? That's what we're going to find out in this video, as we will do a full depreciation analysis for the McLaren 720S. Let's get going. Now, before we dive into the depreciation per year and the depreciation per 1,000 kilometers driven, we're first going to have a look to the average price point of the different McLaren 720Ss out there. That's perfectly illustrated by the graph over here, where we have price on the x-axis and the number of cars available for that given price point on the y-axis. Now in blue over here we have the second-hand 720Ss, and you can see that there are 14 cars for sale with an average price point of 250,000 euros. And this average price point is indicated by the dotted line which goes through the graph. In green we have the demo cars. You can see that there are only 2 cars for sale and that they have an average price point of 280,000 euros. Finally, in orange we have the new cars. We can see that there are 6 new cars for sale with an average price point of 290,000 euros. Now please note that all the prices which I show you are list prices, as it is impossible to find out the actual selling prices of the cars. Now if we plot the cars based on the model years, we end up with the graph over here, where we have model year on the x-axis and price on the y-axis. The colors are the same. So we have in green the new cars, in orange the demo cars, and in blue we still have the used cars. Of course the new cars are all from 2019, as you can see that all the green bubbles are displayed over there. The demo cars are either from 2019 or 2018, and the used cars are spread throughout the model years. Let's move on now to the depreciation per year, which is displayed in the graph over here. On the horizontal axis we still have the model year, and on the vertical axis we have still the price. I however had to remove the distinction between the new, used and demo cars, because the average depreciation per year is calculated over the whole data set, so all of the 720Ss which you saw. Now to maintain some of the distinction between the model types, I inserted axes in the graph. And these axes show the average price point for that car type for that specific model year. So for example, the blue axis which you see show the average price point for that model year for the used cars. The same goes in green for the new cars and in orange for the demo cars. Now the blue line which goes through the graph shows the average depreciation per year, and you can see that this sits at around 23,500 euros for a McLaren 720S. Now if you have a close look to the depreciation curve, you can see that most of the depreciation is taken effect in the first year, so from 2019 till 2018. In fact, the slope of the depreciation curve is almost zero from 2018 till 2017, indicating that there is very little depreciation between those 2 years. Now if we move on to the depreciation per 1,000 kilometers driven, we end up with the graph over here, where we have on the horizontal axis the kilometers driven and on the vertical axis the price. You can see that the kilometer range goes from 0 to 20,000 kilometers, and that of course all the new cars, which are again displayed in green, have 0 kilometers driven. Now the depreciation per 1,000 kilometers driven is again indicated by the blue line and sits at 3,100 euros per 1,000 kilometers driven. This is indeed, just as with the depreciation per year, quite steep. Now if we combine the effect of depreciation per year and depreciation per 1,000 kilometers driven, we end up with the graph over here. We have again model year on the horizontal axis and price on the vertical axis. The bubbles are however now sized according to how many kilometers that specific car has driven. So the larger the bubble, the more kilometers that car has driven. And by investigating this, we can see perfectly which effect is going on here. The effect of kilometer on price or the effect of year on price. So let's have a look. Now generally speaking, if we look to one model year at a time, we should expect to see that the more kilometers a car has driven, given that the model year is the same, the lower the car should be priced. And that is exactly what we're seeing in the graph over here. We can see very clearly, for example in 2017, that the 720Ss with low kilometers are priced significantly higher than the 720Ss with many kilometers. Now the effect is also visible in 2018, but not as strong as in 2017. Overall, however, we can conclude that the 720S is a car which is quite sensitive to mileage, and that is something which is also confirmed by the correlation plot. Now that plot is shown over here, and it displays the correlation between kilometer, price and model year. Now it goes into too much depth to explain exactly what the number means, but you should know that the number can vary between -1 and 1, and that it indicates how much the variables move either in the same direction or in the opposite direction. Now so far, for all the cars which I've analyzed, I've seen that model year has the most strong correlation with price, meaning that the older the car, the lower the price. For the 720S, however, we can see that the correlation between kilometer and price is stronger than the correlation between model year and price, showing already that kilometer is a very important variable in analyzing a 720S. It hereby also confirms our previous conclusion that the 720S is quite mileage sensitive. If we then conclude on the depreciation for Mclaren 720S, we can say that it is indeed a difficult case to examine, and that it's not so evident to put a label as to high or low depreciation on the car. If we look to the depreciation numbers in isolation and from a relative perspective, we can see that they're not so bad at all. The average depreciation was 23,000 euros, which equals around 10 to 20% of the new price. Now this number is not bad at all if you look to it from a relative perspective, as any ordinary car will depreciate at least 20% in its first year. Now on top of that, we saw that the depreciation in the second year for the 720S was a lot lower and very close to zero, and this is something which you normally wouldn't see with a normal car. So in that sense, the Mclaren 720S is depreciating less than any ordinary car. Now the problem arises when you start to look to the absolute numbers and when you start to compare those numbers to its peers. Because let's be honest here, no one really wants to lose 23,000 euros on a car per year and add another 3,000 euro loss on top of that for every 1,000 kilometers driven with the car. Especially when you know that its competitors are depreciating less. Now I didn't execute an in-depth analysis for a direct competitor of a 720S, but I did a full in-depth analysis for a Ferrari 458, for which the link will be popping up above here. If we look to the depreciation per year for the 458, we can see that this is close to 5,000 euros, and if we look to the depreciation per 1,000 kilometers driven, we can see that this is close to around 700 euros. Now it is of course not a completely fair comparison to compare the numbers of the 458 directly to those of the 720S. But then again, it shows that you can save a significant amount of money just by choosing a different supercar. I'm however curious to find out what you think of the depreciation numbers of the McLarens. Is that what you can expect when buying a new supercar? Or should McLaren do something about it by limiting production, for example? Now as always, you can also let me know down in the comments which car you would like to see analyzed next. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it and smash the subscribe button if you didn't already do so. Thank you for watching and see you next time.